So I'm going to challenge myself to watch a tutorial and then try to program it 24 hours later without having done any practice at all. Now the program that I want to write allows the user to guess any number between 1 and 20 and see if they guess right, and if they get it wrong then it asks them to insert another number to see if they get it right, and if they get it right then it tells them. If they get it wrong then they get to guess again until they get it right. So I want to see if I can actually program that either through memory of watching the tutorial or just using my general instincts and understanding of programming and conditional statements and also loops. It'll be interesting to see how much I can do and how long it takes me. I'm going to watch the tutorial now, so I'll see you tomorrow. Started the timer so you can see how long it takes me to do this program. So I might just skip ahead to these steps that I'm setting up for myself, but essentially what I'm trying to do is lay out the essential steps that I need to follow in order to make this program work. Okay, so you can see here that I've listed out 6 things for myself, and I've taken about 3 minutes to really think about how to set this program up. So the first thing I've said is that we need the user input, which is the string that has been input into the program by the user, and then we need another type of user input, effectively converted into an integer. And then as number 3, we need a random number generator. What I'm doing here is setting a limit between 1 and 20. And then number 4 is essentially I need to provide feedback to the user if the number is incorrect, so indicate whether the number is too high or too low, and then also feedback to the user if the number is correct. Lastly, although this probably should have come a bit earlier, we need a boolean, i.e. a true-false variable, on whether the guess is correct or not. So let's just continue. So all I'm doing here really is inputting the various variables that are required according to what I've listed above, and you'll see in a second that I've missed 1 or 2 things. Okay, so one thing you can see I've done is in the Boolean variable isNumberGuessed, I've set it to false because the game can only really continue and the loops can only continue if the number has not yet been guessed. And then you can see here what I've done is I've started to create a do-while loop. Now a do-while loop differs from a normal loop or while loop because a do-while loop requires the program to at least go through that program once. And as you can see at the end of the do-while loop, I've set it to isNumberGuessed but negative. So essentially not isNumberGuessed, and if the isNumberGuessed is still false, then the do-while loop or the loop continues to go round and round. So you can see as an absolute minimum, this program writes to the user to enter their guess between 1 and 20, and then as a console.readline, it requires the user to input that guess, and this will be inputted as a string. But for the meantime, I'm struggling a little bit with this console.readline. I'm not really understanding why it's got a squiggly red line underneath and why the program doesn't like it. It's blindingly obvious later what's wrong with this, and if you've picked that up already, it's quite embarrassing. So let's just skip ahead because you'll see that I burned a lot of time just trying to figure out what was wrong with this console.readline. Okay, so after wasting a few minutes, what I'm doing now is converting the string into an integer. Now I'm getting distracted again as to why this console.readline isn't working. The issue seems to be that it cannot convert method group readline to non-delegate type string. Did you intend to invoke the method? Now, I think I understood this later, but for the meantime, I'm not going to reveal what's wrong with this if you haven't picked up what's wrong with it already. What I'm doing now is introducing the first conditional statement within the do-while loop. So all I'm saying is if the user guess is correct, then what happens? Now you can see I made a classic mistake here by using the wrong equality syntax it should be a double equal sign, not a single equal sign, because a single equal sign in programming assigns a value and a double equal sign an equality measurement. Now at this point I realized that I should have introduced another integer in order to record what the randomly generated number is. And now what I'm doing here is setting the value to between 1 and 20, because the minimum value is inclusive and the maximum value is exclusive. It should be listed as 1 and 21. And so here you can see it's throwing an error of a squiggly line. It's because I used the wrong syntax for the equality sign. So all I'm saying here is if the user guessed correctly, the feedback to the user would be, you got it. But it shouldn't only do that, it should also set the isNumberGuessed boolean value from false to true. And that would exit out of this do while loop and finish the rest of the program. However, in the meantime, we need to set out the other conditions, i.e. if the user guessed incorrectly. And so that's what we're doing here. And you can see I'm not the fastest of typers, but I'm also thinking at the same time. And yes, I did watch the tutorial, but I watched it a day before, and it's a little bit difficult to recall some things, but at the same time, I'm really just trying to use common sense and a bit of logic to put this together. So you can see here, all I've really done is said if the user guess is less than the correct number, then the feedback is that it's too low, or else the user guess is too high, and for the user to try again. So at this point, what I tried to do was understand what was going on with this red line, and it threw this error when I tried to run the program. Visual Studio cannot start debugging because the debug target and then the path is missing. Please build the project and retry. Now this was quite confusing for me because I tried to do all sorts of things, search Google, why is the file missing? At this point I actually thought there was nothing wrong with the code itself. I just thought, well, there must be something wrong with Visual Studio, because Visual Studio couldn't find the program that I'd just written and saved. So you can see what I did was I stopped the timer because I thought this wasn't really a programming issue, it was just something to do with the file being saved in the wrong place. And so I did this crazy search around the file explorer to see where it had gone. Then I tried to fix this console.readline, and it suggested creating a separate readline method, but that didn't make any sense to me because I wanted to invoke console.readline from the computer. I didn't want to create a method of my own. Now you can see here as we're skipping forward, I went through all sorts of different potential solutions, trying to see where the file had been saved, etc, etc. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I realized that I'd forgotten the brackets for console.readline. And so I started the timer again, and this time I ran the program. And as you can see here, I tried guessing a number 10, and it was too low, try again. Enter your guess. I tried another number, 14, too low, try again. Okay, so I tried a higher number, 17, and I got it. So the program worked, and as you'll see in a second, I tried to improve it because the user interface seemed a little bit awkward in the way that it required or requested the user to input another number. It's funny how a missing bracket can just basically throw everything off, and it's something that I really need to remember in the future. So I'm just going to skip forward here because I was experimenting with the presentation of this program and how it requested input from the user thing, and so I tried again. Too high, too low, 9, got it. Okay, so the program works. I'm pretty happy with that. Even though this, took me about 20 minutes, in reality it was more like 45 minutes because of this console.readline. That's something to really pay attention to. Again, it seems to be syntax that's throwing me off, not necessarily the programming concept, but it's been a good learning experience. If you want to see more of my coding mistakes and challenges, do have a look at my previous videos. And until then, if you want to follow my journey, please do subscribe, and it really helps if you can like this video. So thank you. See you next time.